Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be hanging out with somebody who gets to make little girls' dreams come true. Somebody who is in charge of a very exciting team these days. The head coach of Utah Gymnastics, Carly Dockendorf. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. And it's cool. Like I was just looking at your kiddos in the background, and we have kids the same age. And um, I think it's very cool to be creating a difference in this sport from what we had when we were gymnasts, that we can make this sport a really great place for kids who are up and coming. But I'd love to start with your experience as an elite athlete. Would you tell us a little bit about your personal sport journey before we get into your coaching?
Sure. Yeah, everyone has their own journey, right? To get to where they're at. And just like many people out there, started gymnastics when I was 3. And when I was probably 10, training 25 hours a week, and was on the Canadian national team as a junior when I was probably 12. And things were looking really good for me. I was just crushing it in my mind. I thought I was crushing it. And then I actually developed a lot of fear issues. Went one day from doing double Arabians on floor and double Arabians off bars to, having my coach spot me on a back handspring. And it felt like overnight. It felt like it just happened right away. But definitely something that, that was a lot of years ago, and I think was not something people were really open to talk about at that time, or really knowing how to like help somebody like that. And thankfully for me, I had really supportive coaches who just continued to show that they cared about me and were there to help me. They didn't even, need to have all the answers, but just them supporting me and caring about me, I think helped me continue on. And then after dealing with it for a few years, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it feels demoralizing, like you go from being on the national team, doing all these skills, to having your coach spot you on a cheese mat, doing a skill you've done since you were 5. After years of struggling with that, I ended up quitting the sport in high school, and never would have thought I've ever would have gone back. I was done. I'm like, I'm good. I'm finished. And then crazy enough, one of my teammates had just finished her first year here at Utah. And she had had like the best experience. And she came back one summer and we went and hung out, and she was like, you have to go back to college. You have to go back to gymnastics so that you can do college. And I was like, I'm good. I'm fine. She's like, no, trust me. It is so much more fun than club gymnastics. You will absolutely love it. Like, you can do it. And because of like that conversation, I ended up coming back in 11th in grade 11, and then ended up getting a scholarship to Washington. And she was right. Like, college gymnastics was amazing, and I ended up doing pole vault as well in college, so I ended up doing 2 sports. But the fear stuff never went away. Like, that was always there for me. To this day, like, I know that's what held me back from ever being able to achieve my true like physical potential. But it also like shaped me into who I am today, and shaped me into the coach that I am today. And I think like at the time, it's so easy to be like, oh, like, why me? Like, why am I the one dealing with this? And you don't always know why it's happening. And it could be 20 years down the road. It could be 5 years down the road when you go through any kind of struggle in life. But I always just feel like we get dealt the cards that we truly can handle, even if in the moment it might feel like we can't, we can. And then it just, it makes you a stronger person. You're able to kind of help, someone else who's going through it down the road. And I would never have had that perspective when I was, 13, standing there having my coach spot me on a back handspring, but I do now. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, dang it, I have the same story as you, except I didn't do the Canadian national team and I didn't come back. And I mean, what an amazing experience to have a friend remind you about the love of the sport.
Yeah.
It can be fun, and you go back in and get to have this really, I mean, your career path opens up as a result.
Yeah, it was cool. And like, I will say too, like when I got to do pole vaulting, I mean, it actually transferred over to pole vault too eventually. So I still had like similar fear issues when I got there, and it, held me back as well. But one of the coolest experiences I had, so I actually quit gymnastics the night before I was supposed to go to Commonwealth Games for Canada. And Commonwealth Games for like those countries, for Canada and the other Commonwealth countries, it's like a big deal. Like Commonwealth is huge. And I quit the night before we were supposed to go to that. And you can imagine the conversations my parents and my coaches and everyone had with me that evening when I said I was done and I wasn't getting on that plane. Um, but when I came back to pole vault, my goal was to make the Commonwealth team for pole vault. And that was in 2010 in India. And I will remember, that year probably for forever, because like I said, my same like mental blocks and my fear struggles carried over into pole vault. And it was like my mission to get myself on that team. And what helped me get through a lot of those fears that year was remembering like my why and like my purpose and why it was so important to me. And at that time, it was because like I wasn't strong enough. Back in the 90s, that sounds like a long time ago, but that's when Commonwealth, was for me, to push through it at that point and have enough tools to make the team. But I was now, and I was going to make it happen. And I ended up making the team and getting a bronze medal. And I'll never forget like that year and being able to like push through some of those challenges I had dealt with for a majority of my life at that point.
Yeah. I mean, so many people get stuck in fear, and then it's sort of like, well, I guess parents are like, well, when do we quit? When do we call it? When do we say it's the end? And that was definitely the perspective that my family had. It was like, well, you're broken. So, oh, well, too bad for you. And then I went and coached because I couldn't
Yeah.
do. But I'm curious, if you could go back now with everything you know and talk to that 13-year-old girl
Mhm.
and, tell her something about it. What's the message that you want her to understand? Or for the girl listening, who's literally the 13-year-old who's like, I was the best one on my team and I won level 4, 5, 6, 7, and now I can't do a back handspring.
Yeah.
What's your advice for her?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is um I feel like we would get like blamed for it, like, oh, she just doesn't want to do it or it's her fault. Nobody chooses to have mental blocks. Like it wasn't a choice. And so that would be my biggest message is like, continue to have community and support around you where people are just continue to care about you as a person and are being supportive, and just remembering that like it's not your fault. No one's choosing to be deathly afraid of a skill that you've done for so long. Because I think that story gets sung a lot to people that have fear and mental blocks.
Yes, I just was talking to a mom this morning who was like, our coach doesn't believe in mental blocks. I'm like, cool, that's great. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna
Yeah.
have to probably help them to understand. I mean, and what you're a coach, like, what's
Mm.
your perspective on, if a parent out there has a coach in their life who just is not supportive or is
Yeah.
sort of like, we don't believe in that. It's obviously a motivation issue. She's not trying. What do you recommend? You're also a mom of gymnasts, like what's your recommendation for a parent in that type of situation?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think having a conversation, if I was the parent, having a conversation with the coach and having them explain to me, well, why isn't she feeling confident to do that skill, and coming up with a game plan that's going to create a space for her to want to go to practice still, where she's going to feel confident still going to practice. And being able to go there and maybe you go back to basics for a while and you stay there for a while. That's still okay. Is she finding enjoyment going? Let's let her be there in that space for a while. Because I will tell you from my personal experience, going and crying every day led me to quitting the sport. And I don't really think that was the best. I don't know if doing that every day was the right answer. And I would encourage somebody to have a different game plan moving forward if one of your athletes was doing that.
Absolutely. Yep. I was the girl crying on the beam and I quit at 14. Same, because that was just all there was. Coaches were like, "Well, you're not trying. Everyone else can do it. So I don't know what your problem is." And it's so sad because it's really just like you grew 5 inches. So you need to
Yeah.
go to the low beam for a while. It's not the end of the world, but it feels
Yeah.
like it. It so does.
Yeah, I think there's this like separation that like a physical injury is one thing, but like mental is totally controlled. Like you totally can control that. And it's like for a 13-year-old, you might not be able to, just like you said, you have to go back to the low beam. Maybe you sprained your ankle and you're not, cleared to do your series on the high beam yet, but go back to the low beam. It's the same for our brains. Sometimes we need a little mental break also to go back, build our confidence again, and then get back up there and try again.
Yes. So, okay. So, gosh, I could tell about that all
I
day.
know.
But I'd love to get into, some of like your coaching journey and how you found your philosophy as a coach. I know a lot of, very incredible college coaches kind of go through a process of finding themselves in their coaching philosophy. So, can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like for you?
Yeah. When I graduated, I was, coaching club at first, and then I ended up working at a small Division II school, Seattle Pacific. And I was there for about 8 years. And I think that was one of the greatest experiences that I had because at Division II, you're not gifted the same resources as you are at a Division I program. And so you have to learn how to wear many hats. You have to know how to be the marketing person, the strength trainer, the choreographer, coach multiple events. You don't have a big budget to go recruiting. So we used to, use YouTube for all of our recruiting that we did. And so I feel like I really gained a lot of experience in various areas of being a college coach from, coaching at Division II. And then when I came here, I was a volunteer coach at first, and I really just took a step back and wanted to be a student of the sport again. Um, I didn't know what it was like to run a top Division I program that had been to every single regional championships that ever existed. So I really just started paying attention, listening to the gymnasts, listening to the coaches, listening to administration, just really trying to understand the whole picture. And then when I got the opportunity to start coaching as the assistant coach and on beam, I felt ready. I felt like I had a good understanding of what the expectations were to be at a Division I powerhouse program. And, for me, it's always been about coaching the person. I think that's like the number one thing. And that's what I love. Like, I just love working with these women and watching them grow as people. And when they do grow as people, then their gymnastics gets better. Like it goes hand in hand together. And so I think I've just really, my coaching philosophy has grown every year, but like the root of it has always stayed the same. And that's to, help these women be prepared for their next chapter of life and to be ready to give back to the world around them.
Oh, and I think if I could bottle that and put it in every coach in the entire world, there would be so many amazing gymnasts out there
Oh, thank
because
you.
that's the same. Like I always go back to fear because that was my story and that's who I help. And these kids lose their skills when they're stressed about their science tests, and they lose their skills when their grandpa dies, and they lose their skills when they're, like when other stuff's going on, they're getting bullied in school, or they just don't feel like they have a voice. And that's what they need is this, this growth as a human is what gives them back the confidence because then they can expand their comfort zone in such a big way in the gym.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have one without the other. And so I think college coaches, you guys, you get it. It's like these are humans. Whereas I really wish that club coaches would just do more of that, like getting to know the individual. And
Yeah.
it's harder because you've got adults that you're hanging out with. So it's obviously different.
Yeah.
But like what are some of the things that you've done to really build those relationships with your athletes?
Yeah. And I think that's it, right? It's building those relationships with the athletes, showing them that you truly care about them as a person, not just about what they're going to score on the event, because they know that, they sense that, they feel that. If you're just praising them because they, crush that floor routine, but you're not praising them for just being a great teammate. I mean, they're smart women. They pick up on that. Even kids do. Even my little daughters that are 7 and 10, I'm so mindful about the things that I encourage them on. And that's about being compassionate with their friends, giving your jacket to your friend at school that's cold, it's those little things that they just start adding up. And you're like, okay, she's going to love me no matter what I do. If I fall off the beam, she's still going to care about me. And so it takes a lot of constant communication. And sometimes I think we assume they know. We assume that they know that we care about them, but a lot of the times they don't. And we have to say it over and over. I don't think you can say it enough. I don't think you can show it enough in various ways, but just continuing to get to know them as a person, it shows that you're more invested in them than just the score or just the routine that they're going to do.
Yeah. And that, like, gosh, I want every coach, listen and do that, please. Okay, good. There's your assignment. So next I'd love to talk about, so you're in this assistant coach role, and then now you're at the helm. I mean, you've
Mhm.
had one incredible year in that position. What was it like kind of taking over after this kind of turbulent chapter in Utah's saga recently?
Yeah. I always knew I wanted to be a head coach. I didn't really anticipate it happening the way that it did last year. And anyways, I, was grateful that the athletes that were here were supportive of me taking over, and our administration was supportive. And I'm not gonna lie, like there was a lot of challenges, but when you have a team around you, both like your staff and your athletes that are ready to all like work together towards the same goal, you can make it happen. And I think that I really leaned into the other coaches that were here. I mean, we went from 4 coaches to 3 coaches, and Jimmy Pratt, who was coaching vault primarily, he took on bars, so he was coaching 2 events. And Maya Hambrick went from helping on floor and being the volunteer coach the year before to taking on floor completely by herself, and for me, to take on a program as we were about to enter season. But for us to be able to accomplish what we did, that was all of us working together. That was all of us bringing our greatest strengths together and our beliefs that we could still have an amazing season. And same with the girls on the team. It took all of them believing that we weren't going to let this season pass us, and that we still had all the same talent, all the same potential, all the same opportunity presented in front of us. And it was up to us to control what we could control, and still just go for it. So, I know we didn't win a national championship, but based on all the different hurdles we faced throughout the year, like we did win. We won in a really big way last year. And this year, like preseason, it's been so nice to just kind of all be together and not have that kind of cloud sitting over everybody's head. And it's been really great. But yes, definitely a big change, going from being an assistant coach to a head coach. And again, student of the sport, learning again. Here we go. Good thing I love to learn, because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. Well, and that mindset, I mean, that will get you everywhere. That I love a challenge. I love to learn, bring it on. Let's get better at this. I mean,
Yeah.
I coached for 15 years, and at the end I was like, I know nothing.
Yeah. No.
I'm like, what have I been doing this whole time? Because
Yeah.
you just keep learning and learning and realizing, wow, I didn't know how far I had to come before I could be a better coach. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah. So you're also the beam coach. I was the beam coach,
Oh.
and you have this, this history of creating confident performers on beam. Would you give us a little of your secret sauce? And what do you put in those women that makes them so incredible on beam?
Well, they're very good beam workers to begin with when they get here. So I'm not going to take anything away from their talent. But it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is creating confidence in them as women, and allowing them the space to make mistakes. I think that that's really important. That they have to feel comfortable that if they make a mistake, that it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right. We're going to move forward. If you're in a space of fear, if I fall once, I'm out, or she's going to be mad, or they're not going to be happy, or then all of a sudden your focus is in the wrong place. It's a fear-based place. And so, just I think the way that we work collaboratively on that event, that's something that's really big to me is working together with the athlete versus me versus you. It's us together. Let's build the best beam routine together. And that involves conversation, right? Like, what skills do you feel best about? What skills do you know you can hit every single time? All right, let's put those in. What skills do you think that like you could eventually get there with that same level of confidence? All right, let's work on those. Especially at this point in their career, they're adults. They've been doing these skills for a long time. So we're able to have a little more of that collaborative conversation. But I do think that, working together with them, creating this space to make mistakes, know that that's okay. Let's learn from them. Let's both of us learn from them, is really important, especially when you're standing up on that beam, and it doesn't take much to hop off that beam. I hopped off all the time. Beam was like my worst event. I have to tell you, I was so bad at beam. And when I got asked to be the beam coach, and I was like, me, like, have you seen me on the beam? Like, I'm really bad. And so it's kind of funny that like now I coach the event, but I love it because it's such a mental event, and it really is about like how you approach it, how you attack it. You don't have to have all the most perfect technique. You just have to like really believe that like you can do it, and obviously like not be afraid to do it. You got to be able to be up there and just go for it and commit to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious, during the recruiting process, I know, a history of fear can be a little bit of a yikes for someone who's recruiting. Like, if you were to look at, an athlete like yourself for your team, would you have reservations? What would you want to see in that kid who maybe has an experience, like, has had fears in their life? What would
Mhm.
you want to see in them as well to know that they could hack it on your team?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And actually, I was talking to one of my old club coaches a little while ago, and we were just kind of reminiscing. And I was like, I'm sorry, I was such a pain. Like, I know I caused you so many headaches, and not doing my skills. And he said, you know what? The thing about you is like you never gave up, though. Like, you kept working through it. And even though it was like hard for you some days, like you really just kept pushing. And I think to answer your question, like that's what I would be looking for if someone's struggling with like fears and mental blocks, is just to see someone with resilience and grit, and someone who's truly willing to like work through something hard like that. Like it's not easy, and it's not by choice, like we said. But to see someone who's going to continue to like push through, figure out how to make it work and not just give up, I think that's probably what I would be looking for.
Yeah. I mean, you like Kyla Ross struggled with mental blocks on beam. And like, these incredible athletes,
Mhm.
it's common. It's like fairly common. And these parents will be like, my kid's been struggling for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what an amazing dedicated kid that they're
Yeah.
still working at this in
Yeah.
this instant gratification world we live in. Your kid is spending 3 years on a back handspring on a beam.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
what an awesome kid you have. Just to change that perspective of like, and she's not giving up. This is amazing.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
that. Just imagine what she could do in her life with that kind of grit and determination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sky's the
That's what
limit.
I like love about coaching now, is like is that you can help, work through some of those areas. And it doesn't even have to be with just a gymnastic skill, right? It could be something completely outside, and just to help them like work through continuing to push and push and push, and you will get it. You will master it.
Yeah. I mean, with attitude, effort, and time,
Yeah.
pretty much anything is possible. And help and communication and creativity. But like, you could do anything.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that for
Yeah.
sure.
Me too.
Yeah. So Utah has this incredible legacy of excellence.
Mhm.
And I've I'm always curious about the balance between joy, safety, trust, and extremely high standards.
Mhm.
And I'm curious how you kind of walk that line of making sure kids, adults, your athletes are happy, healthy, and successful. Can you give us some, you know, ideas on how you manage that with your team?
Sleepless nights, always thinking about it. I mean, to be honest, I am constantly just being mindful of everybody on our team and on our staff, just constantly watching body language, emotion, and just paying attention to where they're at. If I see someone that doesn't quite seem as happy to be here today, or just looks a little bit more quiet, I will check in with them, like, hey, like, are you okay today? Just even a quick little check-in. So I do feel like I'm constantly watching that, because I think that that's really important. But again, it goes back to, kind of the emphasis of gymnastics is really what you do, but it's not who you are. And making sure that the women on this team understand that. Having been done gymnastics for a long time now, when I reflect back, like, I can't tell you like who fell at regionals and we didn't get to go to nationals. I can't tell you, who scored the most 995s, on an event, but I can tell you like who's a good teammate, who was funny at practice, who encouraged me when I was there. Those are the things you actually remember. And in the moments now, while they're at college, they don't necessarily see that. And the emphasis is on like making the lineup and scores. And so we have conversations around that, like, here's what's important. Here's what people are going to remember about you. Um, we really do, as an entire staff, an excellent job of making sure everyone on this team feels valued, whether you compete for events or you're an alternate on an event. You still are a part of this team. And that's why we like to keep a little bit of a smaller roster size, so we can keep a tight culture, and not have, with 20 whatever number of people, it is harder to do that, to make everyone feel valued. When you have a smaller roster, last year, we were just talking about this, 13 of our 14 athletes competed last year. Every single one except for one person. And that just speaks to, I think, the culture that we have here, and this level of value and care for the individual. But some of the small things we even do just to show that, I know in like a lot of gyms, I mean, other sports too, but when you start practice, your team, right, they line up in a straight line across, and you got your coach standing up front, and they tell you what you're going to do and all that stuff. Immediately when I took over, I changed that to a circle, because a circle is inclusive. A circle doesn't end. A circle is a space that feels a lot safer and less of like a dictatorship of, I'm the coach and you're going to do what I tell you to do. It's inclusive. And at the start of every practice, we rotate through, and somebody on the team will say what we're going to focus on today, and whether it's encouraging another teammate or focusing on a little more detail and precision on an event. Everybody gets an opportunity to use their voice. Not just me, not just our staff, every single person that stands in that circle. So those are just some of the little things that we do, but I think that they add up and they go a long way as you continue to go through season.
Yes. If your brain knows you have a voice, it
Mhm.
gives you the freedom to exit your comfort zone.
Mhm.
That's one thing I see, that sometimes athletes even have a fear of success because they're afraid they can't say, I don't feel ready for that yet.
Yeah.
So they kind of get stuck on, like in a rut. Whereas if they know, I can come to my coach, I can talk to my coach, I can say what I'm feeling, I can have an opinion on the trajectory of this team. I mean, all of that's going to create this sense of safety within
Mhm.
them that makes them more able to do the scary, to potentially unsafe feeling things that gymnastics requires.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. And just makes them feel like they want to be there. They look forward to going to that space. Nobody wants to go to a space or a gym or a team where they feel unwanted or not valued or not appreciated for just being them. And so that's, it's so critical to our culture, and to our staff, to make sure that everyone feels like please just be you. Don't try to be anybody else or fit in anybody else's box, because that's not authentic. We love for you for just being authentically you. You know, it's the greatest part. But it's not something that just happens. You have to make time for that. You have to make time for those conversations. You have to make that a priority, because it doesn't always happen organically.
Yep, that's so true. So, okay, there's this dichotomy where people feel like you either have to be very harsh or you're really compassionate and then you don't work as hard and you lose your edge. And I talk about this all the time because I'm like, I'm always seeking that middle ground where you can have kind, loving, trusting, supportive, and extremely successful. And there
Mhm.
are plenty of examples out there of those being able to coexist.
Mhm.
But I'm like, can we talk to the people out there who are like, well, if you legalize failure, they're not going to try hard. If you tell them they can fall, they're going to fall. If you
Mhm.
tell them that it's okay that you're not competing this meet because whatever, then they're just going to say it's okay and it's not okay. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to kind of like I was saying earlier, some of that collaboration work where the very best gymnasts take ownership over their sport. They're not doing it because I'm telling them they have to, because their parents are telling them have to. Um, it's them actually taking control over what they're doing because they want to do that. And if your athlete can be in that space and you've built a relationship of care and love, and as I was mentioning earlier, where if their score isn't perfect or they don't do the perfect routine, there's that healthy relationship of like, I know she's still going to care about me. That's where the athlete's going to push to be their best, because it's for them. It's their why. It's their deep purpose of why they're there. If they're there for an external reason, it's just there because otherwise they're going to get in trouble if they don't do good, or you could come up with a list of negative of thoughts. It's such a short-term motivational tactic, I believe. And sometimes for some people it works, initially, but it doesn't last long term. Maybe that one next turn they do it right because they don't want to have to do 3 more routines or something. But is that going to be the best for the long term? I don't believe it will. And so to go back to my original thought, and that is when the athlete truly takes control over their sport and is doing it for them, doing it for their purpose, then that's when you're really going to see them train in a really healthy space, in a high motivational space, and then they're going to maximize their ability to be their best in whatever they're doing.
Yes. Yeah. Internal motivation. That's the goal. I mean, if you can inspire your kids to be motivated, if you can inspire the athletes that you coach, I mean, I think that's sort of, it feels like the holy grail. Parents are like, how do I motivate my kid to do all the things that I think that they need to do? And coach is
Yeah.
like, how do I motivate her to do the things she's scared of? Well, it's not about that. It's about when they truly tap into their own passion and their own reasons, and you're just part of you're just like on their mission next to them, arm in arm. Like, let's get you that mission that you're on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so powerful. And
Yeah. That's where I think those like conversations with those athletes that are lacking motivation, or they're not showing up and giving 100% each day. That's where it's so critical to pull them aside and be like, hey, like what's going on? Like, are you okay? And sometimes, a lot of the times they'll tell you something that's happening outside of gymnastics, and that's affecting their sport when they're in the gym. And unless you have those conversations, I think sometimes it's easy just to assume that they just don't want to be here. They just don't like gymnastics. And it's like, well, why not? What's causing that feeling? And as coaches, we won't always have the perfect answer, and that's okay. I think just showing that you care, showing that you're invested in them, it's just so important.
yeah, yes, amazing. So, okay, for the 12-year-old girl out there who's got her sights set on college, and some of those 12-year-olds do already know what school they want to go to, and they've got these big, huge dreams. What would you suggest that they really kind of tune in now so that they can be that really hardworking, really driven athlete who can have the level of success that will carry them through college? What are kind of the characteristics or the most important things if they really want to flip that switch and set themselves up for, a long, successful gymnastics career? What can they do?
Yeah, I'd say first from like a technical standpoint and a gymnastics-based standpoint, I know that basics and drills are not fun, but be a master of basics and drills because that is going to set you up long term, not only to learn bigger skills, but if you have like an excellent foundation, probably your execution is going to look really good. And that's a huge thing that college coaches look for is not being able to just do the skill, but how well can they do it? So I would say, that would be from more of a gymnastic standpoint, but character is such a huge part. And, like that grit and that resilience and that hardworking personality and being a compassionate teammate and a caring teammate and being, a leader in your gym and being there to like be the last one to put all the foam blocks back in the pit. Be the one to ask your coach if you need help putting mats away. I mean, those are some of the little characteristics that we look for, like when we go into gyms to recruit. It's a lot of the time we've already seen them compete and we've seen them do all their big skills, and we know that gymnastics level that they're right where we need them to be. And we go in and we watch their body language, how are they interacting with their teammates and their coaches, how they talk about their parents, all of those kinds of things. Because when you're on a team in college, if that's your goal, being a great teammate is equally as important as being a great gymnast.
Yeah, and okay, what about the parents out there? If there's a parent who's got this kiddo who's bursting with dreams,
Yeah.
what can the parent do in their role to set their kid up for success?
I would say the number one thing is to just keep showing your love and your care for them. And as hard as it can be, not asking, why did you fall off the beam today? I mean, those are just nobody jumps off the beam. And if you want your athlete to really make it all the way to college, because it's a long time before that college year gets here, is like keep them, loving the sport, looking forward to going to practice, anything you can do to encourage them to just keep going for the love of it and to, pursue their goal. That's definitely important. But for them, not for you as a parent. I think about my daughter and I don't even go in the gym. I'll actually wait in the car and just let her come out because I never want her to feel like she's doing it for me or that she has to be there. And my one question when she gets in the car is, did you have a good time? Yeah, it was great, Mom. And if she wants to keep talking about it, we'll talk about it. And if she doesn't, then I'll ask her how her day was at school and what she did with her friends. So anything that you can just do to continue just to support them in for their love and for their dream. And I know sometimes it's hard and you want to get invested and wonder why it's not going the right direction or why they're facing a challenge. It's all part of the process. And the last thing I would say is when they're 12, they don't need to be an elite or a level 10 to get recruited. I mean, more and more we're seeing athletes a little bit later on, they're a level 10 when they're in 10th grade and they're awesome and they're going to make a perfect college gymnast. So just patience, I would say would be my last thing.
Patience. Yep, we can all benefit from that. Well, Carly, I am so excited that you are at the helm of this school. What sort of legacy are you hoping to leave at Utah, when your time there is done?
Yeah, I mean, it's a legacy school, so no expectations, right?
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. But honestly, I just want to continue to see these women have the opportunity to be the best they can be of, as a gymnast, as a person, as a student. And I just think that, I want them to leave here feeling like they can truly go after any job they want when they leave here. And they have the confidence and the skill set to do that, and they've used their time here at Utah as a vehicle to learn those important skills. I mean, to me, that, that's what I want to leave. It's just a legacy of human growth and confidence in these amazing women that come to Utah.
Strong, independent women. That's my mission. It's like,
Yeah.
and yeah, if you hit some beam routines while you're at it, that'd be great. Win
Yeah,
some trophies. That's awesome. That's allowed. But let that
that's
be the side effect of this amazing opportunity of growth and internal motivation that you can incubate in this loving way. I mean,
right.
so
Yeah.
exciting. Well, I'm rooting for you guys this season. I'm so
Thank
excited to watch. And if people want to follow along, is social media the best place? I know you have you've done the necessary evil of social media being a college
Yeah.
coach.
Social media, we've got our Red Rocks preview December 13th. And that'll be on ESPN Plus. And with us moving into the Big 12 this year, most of our meets will be on ESPN Plus. And then, yeah, we've got 5 home meets, and we're hosting the regional championships this year. And probably one of the most exciting things is this is 50 years of Utah Gymnastics. So we're gonna celebrate it throughout the whole season, and we're gonna just give it everything we can to really go for a big banner this year.
Amazing. Well, we will be rooting for you. Thank you so much for being with me today, Carly.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.